Hi guys, got a new frame in today, and this I received from Banggood. I had a couple of faulty products from them, so following a bit of Google Translate wrangling, I managed to get them to send me this for free, which was okay. And this is the Gep KX5 Elegant, which from now on will be referred as the Gep KX5. Simple because Elegant has no future on a quadcopter frame, especially as a northerner like myself. The first time I rock up to the flying field and pronounce I'm flying the Elegant, it's probably not going to go down too well. Have you got an Elegant, lad? Oh, let's see how it flies. That type of thing. So as you can see, it comes in very elegant packaging, so let's have a look and see what we've got. So we've got some instructions which I probably won't bother reading. Let's get this cack out of the way. Got some stickers. Does anybody ever actually use these? We've got the base plate. Let's have a look what's in here. So we have an LED board, and that's a Betaflight configurable one. GepRC do this really well actually. Their frames are one of the few frames which tend to come with pretty decent LEDs, certainly on bigger frames like this where they're quite large. We've got the bog standard PDB. I'm not sure if anybody even uses these anymore. We've got a bottom plate, I think, and two side plates. And the star of the show, the aluminium back plate and the front plate, which is actually, yeah, it looks really well cut. So I'll have a proper look at that in a minute. We've got some screws and two standoffs, two aluminium standoffs. We've got the base plate. And this is 243mm wingspan, so, or should I say motor to motor, so a bit bigger than most frames which tend to be 215, 220, 230 these days. Really well cut, in fairness, really well cut actually, really well cut. It has got carbon dust on it, so I'll give it a bit of wash, and the screw holes are countersunk on one side, which is nice. Got a bit of an engraved GepRC bit, but I'll talk more about that when I've built it. What have we got in here? Got a very nice battery pad, which I don't know if you can see has cutouts, so when you pull it off the cutouts will remain. Got some antenna tubes, which seems to be a bit of a thing with Gep frames at the moment. I don't like them, so I won't use those. We've got a GoPro strap, and we have a lipo strap. They're actually pretty decent, these. They're stitched as opposed to glued. I just wish they weren't in this disgusting piss green colour, excuse my language. So what I'll do is I'll put this together, and then we'll have a look at it and see what I think. Dumby dumby dum 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 dumby dumby dum 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 dum. If you've bought Earsheen's latest super duper flight controller stack and it blew up when you put your battery on it, please press 1. If, following a UAV Futures review, you bought a ready to fly from GearBest and it didn't work, please press 2. For any other inquiries, please remain holding. Right, so I've put the Gep together, and as you can see, this is it with an action cam on top. So if I just take this off, be able to see it better. Right, overall impressions are I really like this frame. It's really pretty in my view. It's kind of almost like an upside down chameleon in a way. And the thing that caught my eye about this one is basically the position of the arms. And if you followed my other videos, you'll know that I kind of started off with the hyper-low, basically running a really low profile frame. And then I started modifying Martians to lower the top plate down. And I suppose for me this is the natural evolution. The fact that obviously the arms sit on top of the frame means that the motors sit up here, and essentially a battery is directly in line with the props. So all the kind of, I suppose the weight is centralized, and what that should do is mean it's very neutral in the air, and you don't have a battery down here or weighted about up here that pulls you or pushes you around. So it should fly really true. Whether or not you agree with that is entirely down to yourself. I've found that the hyper-low frame that I fly and the Martians that I converted both flew better with a lower profile, particularly in the Martians case, than the original 35mm profile that they come with. But then if you go onto somebody like Kebab's YouTube site, you'll see he's had issues with your authority on some of the frames that he played around with, and whether that's down to the weight of the quad or the direction of his props or whatever, I don't really know. But all I know is that I really like a more central weight. So this went together really easily. Everything's beautifully cut. You've got 4mm top plate. Obviously it's a unibody. The arms themselves are 243mm motor to motor. It's a true X, so basically 17 or 170mm between each motor. And as I said before, the fit and finish is excellent. Top plate, as I said, is 4mm. Bottom plate is 2mm, and these side plates are 1mm. And the front end of it is 7075 aluminium. And there's kind of interesting things to say about this, and it really depends in what camp you sit in. I suppose the GepRC are a kind of unusual Chinese manufacturer of frames. What they tend to do, they don't clone per se. They tend to sort of, I suppose, be inspired by other frame designs and then make their own version. So I suppose the classic version would be you had the D quad, which was a relatively new styled quad using an aluminium roll cage, and then Gep released their Leopard, which was a similar looking frame, but it was made in a much different way. And a lot of people said that the Gep version was a better frame. The arms were stronger, the way that they were attached together was better. I've used neither of those frames, so I can't comment on that myself. But what you tend to find is on most Gep frames is that they're very nicely cut. They're well manufactured. They're massively sort of better cut and using better quality components than real ACC or the stuff you usually get from banggood. The downside is they very rarely come up with a truly original design, and this is clearly heavily inspired by the chameleon and those type of frames, but it's been done in a really, I think, a unique way. And while there are quads out there that I suppose have the arms on top and the stack below, if you're in the UK like I am, those frames aren't really obtainable unless you run the roulette of customs via America and buy, from a really niche company. They're certainly not mainstream, and that's what caught my eye on this. Back to the front end, the original Chameleon used 6061 aluminium, and their take on it was that 6061 bends easier, and thus the end user, me and you, could bend it back again. There were quite a lot of complaints that in a front end crash, the top plate would bow down, the camera pod would bend backwards, and it could take out your GoPro and your stack inside. But Armaton have always claimed that the reason why they didn't use 7075 is because 7075 is more brittle, which it is. However, it's a hell of a lot stronger and it doesn't bend as easy as 6061. And if you compare that to what's the new one they're coming out with, the Armaton Rooster, which is a chameleon using with detachable arms using titanium. 7075 titanium is 1.64 times stronger than titanium, and it's also 1.67 times lighter. So I kind of asked Armaton why you just didn't build the chameleon out of 7075 in the first place, and his answer was it's too brittle and it doesn't bend. I'm a bit of a cynic. I suppose my view on that is they didn't make it out of 7075 is because they knew that it would be if you made it out of 7075, it would be a hell of a lot stronger, but in a really, really bad crash it would probably snap, and Armaton would have to fork out for more front parts, more aluminium parts. Now, I am a cynic, so whether or not that's true, that's just my own take on it. I've spoken to a few people who know more about aluminium than me, and 7075 is used in the aircraft industry, etc. 6061 tends to be used in areas where you need a lot more flex, and I'm not so sure that's the case on the front part of a quad. I think my take on it is, in a bad crash, I would rather this deflect as much load as it humanly can do and protect my components, and then eventually potentially fail, than be bending, aluminium backwards and forwards, and every time I do that it becomes weaker. But as I said, that's just my take on it. Whether you agree or disagree is entirely down to yourself. But 7075 will be, it's going to be interesting to use, because if I take it out and crash it and it snaps in the first occasion, then I'm completely wrong. If I take it out and have a million crashes and it doesn't break, then, great. So this whole frame is very much a suck it and see exercise for me. In terms of the frame, as I said, I love the way it looks. There are some things to be aware of, though. It's a very long, or should I say, it's got quite a large wingspan, and the little bit that worries me is these arms are naturally quite long, 243mm, as I said. Where they join, I'm slightly concerned about this structure here, which is essentially the where you would sort of hang your flight control and ESCs, etc., basically upside down, or should I say from the top. And for me, there's not a huge amount of material around there. I mean, it's all beautifully cut, and there's no particularly sort of points where it runs really close to the edge in terms of where the holes are. But equally, I wish it was a little bit thicker here, just for peace of mind. Whether it will break or not, I've no idea, but they're just the things that come to mind. It's really, as I said, it's really nicely cut. The flight controller nylon screws are countersunk as well, and basically they just sit through there, and obviously you would mount your 4-in-1 ESC or your flight controller, etc., just hanging from the top. I would have rather they made the base plate as normal and have your screws going up, because I think if they'd have had the 30.5 mounting holes for your flight controller on the bottom, there's probably less vibration running through this plate than there is from your top plate. But I might be wrong about that, but it would kind of make it easier and I suppose less counterproductive to do it that way. The weakest part of this whole design, in my opinion, is this side plate, which is basically 1mm, so it does flex a fair bit. And I suppose the idea of this is just to give a little bit of lateral strength, but it's not hugely strong, and if you did have a side impact, I'd imagine it would break pretty easily. I suppose the idea of it really is just to stop grass and bits of crap hitting your flight controller, etc. But I think this could potentially have been done better. And I also hate frames that use M2 screws, and if you see here and here, this plate basically clips in and is screwed in by M2 screws, and I didn't like the original Chameleon when it used M2 screws, and it's the same on this one. I just wish they'd have basically used M3 here. I just find M2 screws really annoying. They're really easy to strip the heads on them, and they're fiddly to get in and out. But the good thing is, compared to some other Gep frames, you've only got 2 screws to remove to pull this side plate off and get access to all your bits and bobs. The rest of the screws are really good quality. They're not the usual rubbish you get from China where the heads strip on them. It's really, really good stuff. And I think that the whole thing, as I said, I just really like it. I mean, if I just grab a battery, actually, if I just sit the GoPro back on again, maybe sat a bit higher than that, but that'll do. This is kind of the biggest normal battery that I used. It's somewhat knackered now, hence the reason it's taped up. And this is a 1550 more, what is it? Dyna-G Graphene 2. Good batteries, these. Particularly like them because they come with a really short balance lead. So what I tend to do on my freestyle frames is put the battery like this, wrap the wire round at the top, and obviously connect it to the battery connector down there. So if I just do the little test, and I usually butt it up against the back of the action camera, and as you can see, it fits pretty perfect. And it's got a little bit more room than my hyper low frame, which I'm really chuffed about. At the back you've got a centimetre of room, so you're going to have no issues running standard size batteries. In terms of props and how much clearance you've got, can you see this? Yes, you can. If I just put this on here, try and line it up roughly, and grab that battery again, place the battery on, get it lined up, you've basically got a fair bit of room even if you bring the battery right the way back. So it's not massively close to hitting the battery, and at the front you've got tons of room, so there's nothing to worry about. The one nice thing about this side plate is it doesn't reach the top. They've left a little space, so you can obviously run your normal LiPo strap up like this, but if you want to do, and like me, you prefer to run 2 LiPo straps on a freestyle frame for extra peace of mind, you can also loop one over the back part as well, so you can hold your battery on nice and securely. I haven't put the basically battery pad on, which can you see the way it's cut out? It's beautifully cut out. I haven't stuck that on yet, but basically that just sits like so, and it kind of leaves all the screw holes, etc. Available, so that should work really nicely. So yeah, so I think the frame, I think it retails for what, 43 quid or something like that. I think it's really well cut, it's really well designed. Don't particularly like this side plate. You've got this LED which in typical GepRC fashion is built in. It does rattle a little bit, which is annoying. But they're pretty good LEDs this. You can't see it, but it's actually got a buzzer on the other side, which I could do without, but it's there. So if you're going to use this, you may as well use the buzzer. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to building this one. How long it will last, I don't know. I mean, GepRC are usually pretty good about bringing out spares. Usually when they release a frame, if it sells well enough, you'll see spares on banggood, etc. Within a month or two. So I'm hoping this will sell pretty well, in which case you'll be able to buy replacement, I was going to say base plates, but in this case replacement top plates. And if that's the case, I think it's well worth looking at. So the next part of this will be basically to see how it flies. So I'm going to use the AOC Fly 2306 2650 kV, I think they are. Basically because I've got those lying around from the test I did on the Avant frame, and I didn't like those motors on that particular frame, but they should work really well on this. and I've got the Matek F405 all-in-one flight controller and PDB, which I originally planned for my hyperlow frame, so I'm going to put that in as well, and probably, I don't know, some sort of 4-in-1 ESC. I'll have to see what I've got lying around. I did want to use the CL Racing F4S flight controller, which has got a dedicated camera control pad on it. And I really like the idea of being able to bring up your on-screen display via Betaflight for your camera and be able to twiddle with the settings, especially if you live in the UK like I do, and you know, some days it's really sunny, but most days it's really cloudy, and being able to change your camera settings so easily would have been great. But I've managed to resist that purchase, and I'll just use the components that I've got. So yeah, so that's pretty much it from me. We'll see how this goes. Love the idea of it. Let's see if it works in practice. Cheers guys, thanks for watching. Bye bye.